everyone, and welcome to the Meet the Expert show. I'm Dori Soukup, and with me today is a very special guest, Shirin Adelman. She is a legal attorney with Lengea Law. She's been practicing law for the past 20 years, and her firm helps medical spa owners, wellness centers, doctors, dentists set up their practice legally and avoiding costly mistakes. She's here today to discuss with us the legal blueprint for planning a medical spa successfully. So I'm super excited that you're with us live. I have a couple of business advisors with us today, also manning Zoom. So feel free to submit your question as we go along. I have Brooke Birmingham and Lacey Hardy, two of our great coaches. So please feel free to chat with them and ask any questions of Shirin so she can help answer them for you. We're super excited that you're with us today, Shirin. Thank you for taking the time to come and see us. And I want to start by always asking people, what made you choose a career in law?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always my family has come from public service. They've been teachers, healthcare providers, educators, scientists, and I've always wanted to be in the public realm. Advising people has been always an interest of mine, and legal analysis is the way I think. So I think advising in the medical spa space is a win-win. They're great clients, and you really become one of their closest friends and advisors, which I think is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. So as a business firm, we're always getting people in asking us legal questions. And of course, that's not our specialty. We help people set up businesses, not legal advice.
Yeah.
So whenever someone's starting to talk, can I do this and can I do that? That's when right away we say you need to talk to Lengea Law. As a matter of fact, Sarah, your managing partner, has been actually on the Meet the Expert show with me before,
amazing.
And we loved having her.
Yes,
so I'm
she's
so
fantastic.
glad that you're with us now.
Thank you.
A lot of people think just because they have the money, like we see a lot of entrepreneurs that think that because they want to invest in a medical spa, they can just own one and operate it. And little do they know that that is not the case.
Absolutely.
So how do you help them from that aspect?
So the first thing we always assess is in which state are they planning to open. So every state has a different, what they call corporate practice of medicine regime. So some states are strict with it and do actually restrict the corporate practice of medicine, and others are more lax. That is the first most determining factor. So, I'm happy to go into the details. So we call it CPOM. So in CPOM states, if you're not a physician or NP with full practice, you technically should own this non-clinical management company. In non-CPOM states, anybody can own a medical spa. So that's probably the first question, because obviously we work with a lot of RNs and PAs, and they are great providers, but the ownership issue is critical in terms of in the CPOM states. So that's probably the first question that we come across when we're first setting up a med spa.
Okay, so when they call you, they should first tell you where they are, and then you guys can look and see whether they can own and operate one and not. So let's say that they cannot operate one, then what are some of the steps that you guys help them with?
Absolutely. So if they can't directly own the clinical portion of the medical spa, what we always recommend is to own what's called a management services organization. That's a management company. It's a non-clinical entity, and frankly, anybody can own it. So we have investors calling us, besides even just the healthcare providers. So that's a way that people can own, get involved in the medical spa business, own the value of the medical spa in a compliant, legally compliant way.
Yes. So do you find that easy to actually set up, and does it really work well for the people that are in it?
Absolutely, yes. It's a couple additional steps, but we've done over 1,500 of these around the country. So it's been quite an amazing journey, and it's actually much easier. Once you kind of fall into it all falls into place. Once you kind of get into the process, it falls into place.
Okay.
So
I was talking to a client of ours the other day from Colorado. They were actually two NPs, and all of a sudden they found out that they cannot own it at all, even if they had the management agreement. They said that a doctor has to own 51% of it. Now, I don't know if off the top of your head you can answer that question, but that sounds Like, how does that relationship work?
Absolutely. So it's funny, in Colorado, actually, NPs can have full practice after a transitional period. So in that type of a situation, we would assess how many years have they been practicing, what's their experience level. They actually, they may be able to own the clinic directly.
Okay.
Colorado is considered a CPOM state, but some NPs do have full practice in over 50% of the states in the U.S. So
yeah, that's very interesting. Because I don't know how I would feel that as a business person, like if I want to own a medical spa, I don't know how I would feel about giving 51% ownership to someone. How does the financial picture look with that kind of setup?
I agree. It's a very challenging situation because you have, for example, RNs or PAs or NPs coming in and they're investing some of them investing their life savings into this business.
Yes, for sure.
So to give up 51% is not anyone's first choice. And that's, I think, another reason that the management services organization is such a great option, because you can actually own 100% of the business. The doctor or NP, if they have full practice, would own 100% of the practice area, but your management company owns the assets, the goodwill, the brand name, the equipment. So it's much preferable to own 100% of your management company as opposed to owning 49% of a practice.
I see. So that's how that comes into play.
Yes.
All right. So that makes them feel a little bit better that they actually own it. So how does it work when someone, let's say they want to sell that now? Do they take the 100% of the management company's money, or how much do they pay? Like that's so confusing to so many people.
Yeah. So are you referring to like a private equity sale,
or selling it to anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So the target would be the management company, and then if they have a relationship with a doctor-owned practice or an NP-owned practice, that's part of the package. But again, because the assets are owned in that non-clinical management company, it sets itself up very nicely for a sale.
Good.
And many firms also want to own a management company.
Yeah.
So that's how they get into it. So it's already set up.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I love about you guys, because you are specific with the medical industry, medical spas particular.
Yes.
And when somebody first talks to like different lawyers, I'm like, you're crazy. No, you want a specific, you want a niche lawyer that specifically works with medical spas, because it's so difficult to navigate all these laws. And what drives me crazy is that every state is different, as you mentioned. So that even makes it more difficult. I don't know how you guys can keep up with all the legal stuff that you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, like you've advised countless entrepreneurs. It becomes your niche. So this is what like you. Obviously, you're an expert in the field. We're doing this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. So it becomes your specialty, and then you just keep up.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about licenses and compliances. So let's say somebody again wants to open, or they're already in business. What are some of the key licensing modalities or things that they need to have?
Absolutely. So again, kind of going back, kind of beating that horse of the CPOM, again, that's always a number one consideration is are you set up properly? We have a lot of clients come to us and they said, well, can you give us a list of checkpoints?
Right.
And our response is, the way we're structuring you is actually compliance. It's much deeper than just frankly a list of checkpoints.
Right.
The other licensing issue is, again, the provider. Are they licensed in the state in which they're practicing? What is their scope of practice? In many states, certain practitioners can, do good faith exams. They can prescribe. That's a big differentiator. So
yeah. And how about like let's say they have employees, and you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question about this specifically.
All right.
So Amanda's asking, I've heard so many conflicting things on good faith exams since the law/regulations are so gray in so many states, California specifically. How do you decipher if they're actually necessary for IV therapy and aesthetics specifically?
That's a great question, and that's one of the top two, I think, big compliance issues. MSO, CPOM is number one, GFEs, good faith exams are number two. They're always necessary. So if you have a question about a procedure, just default to doing the GFE. So a lot of these procedures are technically medical, even though they're not invasive. So even though you're not performing surgery,
Right.
they're technically medical. So if it is medical, then a GFE would be required. If it's just cosmetic, like facials or chemical peels, then probably a GFE would not be required.
Yeah. Does that answer her question?
I believe so.
Yeah. That was a great question.
Yeah.
I have another question as well.
Go ahead.
I'm getting so many and I have to scroll up. Okay. Dr. Kirschner says, hi, beautiful Dori.
Aw.
Should practice be separated into two different companies, management and clinical? Example, like two separate LLCs.
Yeah, and again, that just goes back to in which state is the practitioner practicing? Is that state restricting CPOM? Those are the first threshold questions, and then we just kind of go from there. If it's yes to both, then yes, they would need two different.
Two different LLCs.
Yes.
Okay. What about if they're in the two different states?
So if the medical director's in a different state?
Yeah. Like, let's say, like, they have two locations, like she has two locations. Did you say this was Dr. Kirschner?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a long-time member of ours.
Yeah.
And she has a practice in Naples. She has two practices in Naples and one in Ohio.
Okay. So those are great states because they both actually do not restrict the corporate practice of medicine. So she can actually own the practice directly in both Florida and in Ohio. So that's an easy one.
Yeah, which she does. But would it be better to set it up as two separate companies, two separate LLCs?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So yes, as any lawyer worth their salt would say, just set up as many LLCs as possible because you're always separating out liability. The issue is logistically it becomes complicated because what do you do at the end of the year with accounting?
Yeah.
You have multiple entities.
Right.
So some people want to form a different company per state and some people form one company and just register that same company as a foreign entity in the second state. So they have one company, but it can do business in multiple states.
Yeah.
So that makes it logistically easier.
Okay, sounds good. Going back to our... Oh, okay.
Lots
we have
of
lots of questions
participation.
for you, Shirin. Go
That's
ahead.
what we're here for. We love
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So we have Liz joining us from Texas. She's an NP who's wanting to open a practice. So she's wondering if it should be LLC versus S Corp.
You want to shut down my phone? Sorry, I didn't know it was on.
Did we hear that or did I just repeat myself?
No, you need to repeat yourself. He'll need to edit this. Mark it, John.
Okay, I'm going to ask that again.
Yes, please.
So we have Liz who's joining us from Texas, and she's an NP wanting to open a practice. So she's asking if she should do LLC versus S Corp.
That's a great question. So the LLCs are preferred by lawyers. They're more flexible entities than corporations, but a nice hybrid that we've been seeing is people forming LLCs and then having them taxed as S Corps. So you get the benefit of legal flexibility, and then you can have the tax benefits of an S Corp. But I would definitely recommend that she talk to her accountant as well, because S Corps make sense in some situations. So
Yes, for sure. So there are different people who have two, like we have two different companies. We have, like when we went into medical spas, we created MD Business Advisors. And when we first launched Inspiration Management, we focused on day spas and resort spas. And about 15 years ago, we shifted. So we actually have two companies. One is an LLC and one is an S Corp. Do you advise people to do that?
yeah, so it depends on, again, obviously always connecting with your accountant or financial advisor, but over a certain level of revenues, you get tax benefits from an
Right.
S Corp. So some people form corporations and have them taxed as S Corps, and some people form LLCs and have them taxed as S Corps. So that's the only difference.
I see.
So LLC is just more flexible,
Yes.
and then the S Corp is a tax election. So you can actually do both.
Yeah.
So, but S Corp is very attractive.
Yeah. So
So-
that answers that question for her. Yeah, you're
Sure.
welcome. Let's talk a little bit about HIPAA and OSHA, especially in advertisement, so they don't break those laws.
Yes.
Like a lot of people don't realize how important it is to follow those guidelines. What are some of the mistakes that people make regarding that?
So I think it kind of goes back to medical spas are wonderful places. They're aesthetic treatment centers. They're safe havens for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, they are medical practices. So you have to, patient privacy has to be number one. And HIPAA it kind of takes two forms. It's really a way of being. So the way we advise clients is that you train your staff on common sense measures. Have a be password protected. Do not share your passwords with anyone. Don't discuss patient private information with anybody. Ideally have, multiple treatment rooms so people have privacy. A lot of it is how you behave and act. The other thing that we always recommend is just get a really good EMR and telehealth software that's HIPAA protected and HIPAA compliant. It's just a really good way, electronic medical record. It's just a great way to keep all your documents, your consent forms, your good faith exams in one place. Less paper is better. So, there are different ways of achieving HIPAA compliance.
Yeah, that's great. So talking about consent forms, that's probably one major issue that we see. They think they can just get a consent form just from Allergan or whoever and be all set. That's not how you feel. What's your guys' process with consent forms?
Well, obviously Allergan is a leader in the field. We're a law firm, so we think through the lens of lawyers. So our consent forms have been vetted by multiple attorneys. The devil's really in the details. These documents, a lot of them can look the same, but once you kind of get into the weeds, there's so many nuances that can make or break a situation. So, for example, we always have an arbitration provision in our consent forms. It just helps with lowering litigation fees. Maximize side effects. What are the potential negative outcomes that a procedure could cause? But again, having a robust consent form is critical.
Do you guys sell consent forms?
We do.
Or do you customize them? Or can they just buy a kit of consent forms from you?
So we do have for our membership clients, we do have complimentary access to our library of templates.
Nice.
It's about 150 templates at this point and growing.
Nice.
So we have a lot of consents already made for a lot of treatments. Again, because there's so many new treatments and it's an incredibly exciting field, sometimes we draft and customize consent forms for specific clients. It just depends.
Very nice, So we are like you with your membership. I love that you have a membership model. As a matter of fact, many of our clients are members with you, and they love it, by the way.
Yes, thank you, and likewise.
Yeah, you're welcome. So our membership is part of being on MBU. So just like you give them templates of different forms and things, so we do the same thing so they can go on MBU and be able to download things. So I love that you do that for people because they're so overwhelmed with so many things that they need to take care of. So anytime we can make their lives easier, then it's a nice thing to definitely do.
Yes.
So what about HIPAA and digital advertising or marketing? Let's say I get this question all the time as far as testimonials, being able to use someone's name. So if they sign those consent forms saying, yes, you can use it, what are some of the things that they really need to pay attention to so they're not violating the law?
Yeah. So for example, we have a lot of clients who do a beautiful job on a treatment and they want to post a before and after photo. Every one of those action steps with respect to a patient should have a consent form. So those consent forms are not just, am I going to be consenting to Botox, but also am I consenting to posting a testimonial? Am I consenting to posting a before and after photo? Literally every little action step in our world today, it's a really good idea to have something in writing where the patient is consenting. Because privacy is paramount.
So what we teach is once the new client comes in, patient, then they should really give them all the consent forms. So don't wait for the social media consent form to come once you're done. So it should be part of the initial paperwork.
Absolutely.
And that makes life so much easier. It protects them more because then they're not going to forget. We already have it.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
It's very important. Hopefully they're doing what we teach them with that. So as far as structuring like employment agreement, how do you help people with that? Because we know we have to have, whether it's employee, independent contractor, benefits, this and that.
Yeah.
What are some of the HR components of setting up an employee properly from the beginning so you're protecting yourself? And then the backup question to that, Shirin, is, we heard some things about, confidentiality and non-compete are no longer valid, and then there was an announcement where they said, yes, it is. Can we clear up the air on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So employment agreements are critical. It kind of sets the expectations for what, how your staff is supposed to interact with each other, how they're supposed to interact with patients, and it kind of codifies it. So, really important provisions to include in employment agreements are non-disparagement. What happens when you leave? What happens when you stay? Non-competes are still enforceable in many cases. So it's interesting because a lot of this is real time. It's revoked, but then it's reinstated.
Yes.
Non-solicitation. If someone leaves your practice, are they going to come after your patients? And are you going to protect yourself from that?
Yes.
Confidentiality.
Yes.
Obviously, there may be intellectual property, a lot of materials that a practice creates that are really personal to them, and they want to protect that. So those are some of the really key provisions to include in employment agreements. And yeah, I mean, we just see so many, people starting out and they hope for the best, and there's no employment agreement.
No.
It's unbelievable.
It is. Well, especially now, what we see happening a lot is, let's say an entrepreneur owns a medical spa and they have all these injectors that are generating $1 million a year for them.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden, the injector realizes, like, oh, I'm generating $1 million, I'm getting 100, maybe I can go do my own thing. And if they don't have all these important agreements, you're done. Like, imagine $1 million walking out.
Yeah, and as you know, I mean, you've helped so many people scale. Owning a business is also different than being a great producer.
Yeah.
So obviously, we definitely want to protect against that.
Yes.
First and foremost.
Yes. Now, do you have these agreements also as templates on your membership site?
We do. We have those agreements as templates, and we always recommend that we customize them.
Yes.
But we do have them as templates.
Great.
To give people
And
options.
another key important thing that I'm always telling people they should also get from you is an employee manual. So a lot of them don't realize how important that is. And if they do have one, it's usually a couple of pages. I'm like, no, you have to really elaborate on that.
Yes, I agree. It's again, an employee manual. It's just setting expectations for how people are supposed to interact with each other, with patients. Employment law is so state specific, so you definitely want it customized per state. It's incredibly important to have.
What do you think are the biggest mistakes people make when they're opening up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest mistakes is, again, just trying to be everything to everyone. Spreading yourself too thin, trying to offer too many procedures at once, and instead of kind of focusing on a few and nailing them, and then just kind of growing organically from there. We see some clients have these incredible office spaces, but they don't have the patient base to support it yet. So starting small, there's nothing wrong with starting small.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is, I always tell them is don't go too much into debt. And what happens is they get so into buying lasers and this and that, and before you know it, they're $500,000, $1 million in debt.
Absolutely.
And then when they don't have the proper marketing structure, like we always teach, you should have your own internal marketing person to really make sure that you have this beautiful place, but then you have nobody walking in. And then the other thing we emphasize is the sales structure. So between marketing and sales, and not being too much into debt, then it is starting wiser is much better than getting in debt.
Absolutely.
And that's how they don't have the reserve, cash flow reserve, and then they last a year. As a matter of fact, that's a statistic. We know that most businesses fail within the first year or to 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's what happens because of all the debt and the pressure. And like you said, they're wearing all these different hats. And
yeah, I mean, spending wisely and being budget conscious is probably the most, as you said, it's probably the most important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Because that's how you stay afloat.
Yeah. And one thing I want to mention, which is funny to us, is like we'll have a new person reach out to us. and they'll say, yeah, I'm opening. I already have all my equipment. So they're already, okay, so how are you going to make money? And they have no idea. I'm like, well, thank God you're reaching out, because now that you bought all this, let's show you how you can make money. So do you have a question, Brooke?
Lots of questions coming in. So we have someone asking, can you have consent for procedures signed at every visit and have other consents like the policies, HIPAA policy, photo consent signed yearly?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So what we always recommend is, obviously the first time the patient comes in, they should sign a consent. If there's if you have a number of procedures within a package, then one consent should probably cover that.
Okay.
If they're going to have a different procedure, obviously a different consent. As specific as possible is always the best policy.
So you should have a consent form. You can't just have a consent form, general consent form for the facility. Does it have to be for every single treatment that they get?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We actually have clients asking, can we just have a general consent form? It's just easier.
Yeah.
But, and it protects you more. It's slightly additional steps, but it definitely protects you more to have more specific consents for specific procedures.
Yeah.
Because they all have their own, side effects.
Yeah.
Going back to the good faith exam, who can legally perform those?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's the $1 million question.
That's why you're here.
Yeah. Thank you. That's an incredibly important question. So I would say, universally, there are 3 categories of people that can perform good faith exams. You have the physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, or physician associates. So it's within their scope to diagnose and assess and clear a patient. That's a very, very big deal. As a registered nurse, you can actually do a history and physical, but then you should be sending the photos, videos of the interaction to, again, one of those 3 in that trifecta, physician, PA, or NP. So it's incredibly important. It's a little bit time consuming, but it's so critical.
How is this done? Are you sending a video, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so there are different options. You can either do it in person or by telehealth. I mean, so many, especially with COVID, telehealth has expanded to great lengths. So a lot of people do their good faith exams via telehealth. And there are even companies that just focus on telehealth. So they really fill that compliance bucket. And that's another option for people too.
Yeah. And do people really do that?
Yeah, the good faith exams?
Yes.
I mean, our clients are advised to do it, so I hope they're doing it. So they should be doing it.
I would like to take a poll.
Yeah, who here is doing the good faith exams?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's, unfortunately, we also have, because there's so much more compliance, we are, if you were ever audited, that's one of the things they look for. But it definitely takes more time.
Yeah.
So
we have a brand new spa that's going to be opening up soon, medical spa in the Tampa area. And this is a very high-end location that they're opening. And though she has 2 attorneys managing her trust, they don't know anything about medical spas. So, of course, I referred them to you, and I think they spoke with Sarah. And, the law in Florida has to be a plastic surgeon or a dermatologist that owns a medical spa. So I'm like, yeah, I know that. But do you know how many medical spas are owned in the state of Florida by non-plastic surgeons and dermatologists?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
What will they do? Almost every client of ours is not a plastic surgeon or dermatologist that own them. Would the state go and shut them all down? How? Yeah. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. So it's interesting because Florida is more relaxed than, for example, New York in some ways, and then incredibly strict in other ways. So in terms of ownership, anybody can own a med spa. It's the medical director. If you're offering over half of your procedure, which is skin-based, like Botox and injectables, then you should have a medical director that's a plastic surgeon or a dermatologist.
Right.
So, and very few other states have that requirement for a physician to have that board certification. So
It's very interesting. Yes.
A lot of questions coming in. Everyone's
Okay.
finding this very informative.
thank you.
I believe you just answered this, but maybe we'll just clarify to be sure. So in the state of Florida, can an ER physician be a medical director of a med spa if they've taken courses and received certifications, or it must be a plastic surgeon or dermatologist?
Yeah. She just said that.
Okay.
Yeah. Plastic surgeon or dermatologist.
Yeah. The one carve out to that is if the doctor owns the is the doctor is the medical director of the if this is considered their primary practice, then you can have like an ER physician be a medical director. If it's their secondary practice and the spa offers more than half skin-based procedures, that's when the plastic surgeon or dermatologist are required.
Okay.
So
That is so
Excuse me.
confusing.
yeah, there's so
That
many
is
nuances.
that's why you need to call Shirin.
Well, thank you. I mean, you know all the details, so I'm really impressed.
Oh, no, I believe me. I don't give advice though. And when it
No.
comes to legal laws, we always say no. You need to contact Lengea Law. But we hear all the horror stories. That's really the thing that we hear. And I think I referred one other client to you from New York, and her husband is a plastic surgeon, and she just got audited.
Wow. Oh,
And she was so happy that she had hired you. She became a member. And she just was so thankful. I was talking to her the other day with one of our coaching sessions. And she's like, Dori, you saved. And she has 2 locations, one that's 10,000 square feet and one that's 8,000. She has 100 employees. And she started a medical spa component in her place. And she's like, you saved my life. I would have lost everything.
wow. Amazing.
So you guys really, you made a huge difference, because had this auditor came in,
Yes.
she would have been done.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in some states, the number of audits has really skyrocketed. And, you know, we work all around the country, and in some cases we work with local counsel. Like, for example, we have local counsel in Florida because there's so many intricacies to the laws. New York, obviously, we have a number of us are licensed in New York. We have
Yeah.
a tremendous base in New York. But yes, in some cases, we actually do partner up with local counsel as well, because you want to do right by the client.
Yes.
And because yes, compliance is increasing. It's
Yeah.
becoming a higher profile industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
Yes.
We have Liz for Shirin. We have Amanda asking, do you set up the LLCs for your clients as part of your services, or is that something that they should do? And do you recommend waiting to become a client before doing anything like that? It seems as though she's obviously, starting a new business, but she has a medical director ready for her when she's able to become a member with you.
yeah, that's a great question. So we love when people come to us from scratch, because a lot of times people set up LLCs and the name needs to be changed, and it just becomes more expensive. Or they've purchased paperwork, and then we revise the materials. So we love it when they come from scratch. We actually do set up LLCs for clients. We work with an outside vendor with whom we have an amazing relationship, and they have a fixed fee. It's very cost effective, and so we do actually form the entities.
Nice.
So
Well, that, you're changing. Let's say somebody chose a name, and like we have a couple people right now who are in trademark lawsuits or whatever.
yes,
So how important it is that when somebody comes up with a name, to trademark it?
yeah, it's incredibly important. I guess the first step is we always, the trademarking part is probably the most fun part of the process, because it's the most creative. Our process is, first we do a name clearance search on the name, just to make sure it has not been trademarked. Before you go and spend thousands of dollars on logo and marketing,
yes.
you want to make sure nobody else has it trademarked.
Exactly.
If it's free, absolutely. I mean, especially if you have big, ambitious growth plans, you absolutely want to trademark your name and logo. It's very personal. It's very meaningful. It's your brand.
Yeah.
So it's worth it. And
How much does
do
it
offer-
cost usually to trademark a name?
So we trademark, generally our fees are between $750 to $1,500, which is, I think it's
It's reasonable.
yeah, I think it's pretty reasonable. It does take about 3 to 6 months for a trademark application to be approved.
Wow.
So it is a process.
So would you advise then somebody to, like, really when they get started or thinking about, they should be submitting that before they even, while they're doing their business plan?
Yeah, so there are two levels of trademarks. There's the state level, which we always recommend, and that's really much easier. It's a couple $100.
Okay.
And that protects the name at the state level. And then if they want to do the federal trademark, absolutely. If getting sooner, the better.
Or is that not global? So federal is only in the United States, or do you go globally as well?
Yeah, federal is just in the United States.
Okay.
So.
Do you recommend other countries? Or is that not necessary?
So yeah, I mean, we actually do have some international clients. We're not licensed in those countries, but absolutely. I mean, if they can protect their brand globally, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Other questions, Brooke?
Yes, lots more. We have Jenny who's asking, do you know what will happen with the new GLP-1 regulations, which is the medical weight loss? Can Medspa can med spas provide compounded meds? Apologies for the tongue twister there.
Yeah, that is the real time question of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. So essentially, what's been happening is the compounding pharmacies have been restricted. You know, a lot of these drugs have come off the shortage list. So absolutely, people can still offer weight loss. It's just not as cost effective as it used to be. Just because you're using branded products, and that's what the pharmaceutical companies want people to be doing.
Yes.
So it's not so much what med spas are offering, it's from whom they can purchase. And a lot of these pharmacies are restricted from compounding. So they'd love to offload their inventory at this point. I don't think we're really at the point where someone gets necessarily into trouble by working with a compounding pharmacy, but I think those pharmacies are really the target at this point. Is that compounding is kind of going out.
Yeah.
And pharmaceutical companies want you to use their branded products.
Right.
So it's a
Good
great
old
product.
pharma. Yeah.
Good old pharma, and it's just not as cheap. It's not as cost effective.
Yeah.
So
That's so sad because everything's gone up, like everything. And, you know, that's one advice we're giving all of our clients. You really need to look at your pricing now all over again. See your profit margins, your operating costs, your payroll costs. And a lot of times they don't pay attention, and then all of a sudden they have these slim profit lines that it doesn't even pay to be in business. Like, why are you taking all that risk for not paying yourself and not being profitable?
absolutely, yeah, and absolutely, and you know, working with you and your team, it's so critical to always be reevaluating your product offering.
Yeah.
Because things are this is a real-time business. Things are changing every single day.
Not to mention all the insurance and liabilities.
Absolutely.
It's very expensive. Yes.
Speaking of liability, we have a question. If you have a parent company doing business as a foreign entity in other states, are those foreign entities treated as separate LLC? Can lawsuits of a parent company affect the foreign entities?
Wow,
Or are
that's
they
a deep
protected?
question.
That is a deep question.
Woohoo! That's a smart person there.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So obviously, more entities is always better. It just we would have to take a look at the structure of who owns what. But yes, I mean, the parent entity could potentially affect the subsidiaries. It just depends. It's always helpful to have more levels. But that's a very sophisticated question.
Yeah,
So-
you need a separate consultation for that one. Like, you need to call them and set up a coaching session.
Absolutely.
That's a really good. Yeah.
We can talk an hour on that one.
Yes.
Maybe the next. So we have an entire series that we're going to be doing with Shirin and Sarah. So I'm super excited. We'll be sending you emails to let you know when and the topics. But we would love to also hear from you. So since all of you registered, if you want to send in your questions in advance, that way each session with them will be super valuable and be able to answer all the right questions for you. So very excited. More questions?
Not as of right now. I'm trying
Okay.
to sift through it because you guys are answering a lot as you're going too.
Yeah.
So lots of participation. Everyone's finding it very
Yeah,
informative.
it's great. Well, you know, it's such an important topic, and you don't want to. I have one question about if somebody gets hurt. So let's say you're doing a procedure, it goes bad, and you get sued. What are the proper steps an owner should take? And do you guys represent people in those kind of cases?
Yeah, so unfortunately, bad things happen. Sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it's not that bad, but the patient is just upset. So, but regardless, for the business owner, it's still stressful.
Yeah.
What we try to always do, our first step is always to try to settle before it gets to that stage. Litigation is very expensive. So we do try to work it out with our client and their patient so they can kind of amicably come to a resolution. Unfortunately, lawsuits happen. So
Yeah.
what we, it's just the state of the world right now. So in those cases, we do refer clients to our trusted local counsel. So there are lawyers who go to court every single day.
Yeah.
We're more on the business setup
Right.
side.
Yes.
So they know the judges.
Right.
They do this all day. So
You refer
if
them.
it gets to that point, we would refer them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So we talked about the consent form. So your final advice to us, Shirin, if somebody is already in business or starting brand new, what are some of the most essential things they should do legally?
So I think legally, I think getting set up the right way is critical. Just kind of going back to that acronym, the CPOM, is critical. We unfortunately are seeing more and more audits. So what investigators are looking for is, how are you structured? Are you doing those good faith exams? Do you have patients consented? So your paperwork is critical. And yeah, I mean, I think legally that would probably be
The most important.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, having all your ducks in a row. Do your homework. I would not even think about opening a business without talking to an attorney and say, please help me. Let me make sure I'm going to be successful with all my processes.
Yeah, I agree.
Legal processes.
I
Yeah.
agree.
But sometimes people think, how complicated can this be? I can run the business. I can handle, I can go on legal, what's that site?
LegalZoom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can go on there and get all my stuff. They're like, no.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI is transforming the world,
Yeah.
but it still doesn't, it doesn't replace having
Yeah.
an advisor.
No,
So,
for sure not.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you came here. So for those of you who are not too familiar with MD Business Advisors, my company, Inspiration Management, I'd like to offer you a couple of gifts in case you don't have my books yet. So one is called Medical Aesthetics Success, and then the other one is called How to Make Millions with Your Medical Spa. So if you would like to receive a copy, you can actually chat with Brooke. We can send you one, or you can go online to inspirationmanagement.com and get a copy. As far as somebody finding out or about your memberships and how they can get started, what's the process for that?
Sure, absolutely. So they can first visit our website. It's lengealaw.com. It's LENGEA law.com. And we do offer a complimentary initial consultation.
Nice.
And that can just be booked on our website.
Yes.
So that's probably the
Yeah.
quickest way to get in touch with us.
And that's what I tell everybody. If you have a question, you go there and then you find out how they can help you, and then you can decide yes or no. So we do a similar process. So for anybody that wants to learn how to run a business properly, you do it legally. We do it from a profitability standpoint.
Yes.
So we do the coaching session. We do like a little quick business assessment.
Yeah.
And see how we can help them, whether they're just starting or already in business.
Yeah, it's
So,
incredibly important.
Yeah, so I'd like to invite everybody with us. If you have not had a coaching session, Brooke, as a matter of fact, the young lady, the beautiful young lady that's been asking you questions, she used to run a medical spa in Canada.
Oh, amazing.
And she took it from doing hundreds of thousands to over 3 million.
Wow.
And then she wanted to move to Florida. So her doctor called me up one day and said, can you help her find a job? I'm like, hello? I've been training her and coaching her for 3 years. She implemented every system we
Amazing.
have. I want her. So if you want to
Incredible.
chat with Brooke, yeah, she's an amazing young lady. She's done all aspects of what we teach, and she's my superstar. And so is Lacey. Lacey just sold her business. She owned a great place up in Wisconsin, and she's our other business advisor that's with you on Zoom today. So either one of them can do that business assessment.
Absolutely. The link is in the chat for everybody.
So yeah, any final? I miss Sarah. Next time we
yes.
need to have you both here.
Absolutely, would love that. That'd be amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will be
big
sending
fan.
out an email with this video, so you can watch it again on demand if you like. And again, be on the lookout for future interviews that we're going to do with Shirin and Sarah and answer more of your legal questions. So make sure you write to us with what is on your mind and how we can help you. And make sure you go to lengealaw.com and reserve that complimentary consultation so they can see how they can help you and how you could sign up for their membership.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Any last minute comments,
A
feedback?
lot of people interested in the book.
Everybody
and
liked it?
Yeah, very informative.
Good.
Thank
Well,
you, everyone.
You guys can go. We're going to post this on YouTube too, both of our YouTube channels. So we would love it if you could go and leave some comments, like it, and join us both on social media so you can connect with us and be up to date on everything that we have to offer. That's about it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you so
Amazing.
much
Absolutely.
for being with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, stay inspired. Bye.